welcome to my Flagstaff home. In the previous weeks, I have been talking about getting ready for gardening in the area where I live, which is Flagstaff, Arizona. We have a very short growing season, 103 days long to be exact. We have a 50% chance of frost up to the middle of June and a 50% chance of frost again by the middle of September. So if we are going to get a harvest, we have to start things early. So I've done a couple of videos about starting my garden seeds in an aero garden inside, and then my seeds grew and my plants got transferred into pots. Well, I did something I said I would never do. Last spring, we have a cold spring here in Flagstaff. In May, it will still be going down to freezing temperatures at night. So I usually don't plant my tomatoes outside until, well, I plant them the 1st of May inside these things called walls of water. I'm going to show you that in this video today. And that will protect them down to 16 degrees and even in snow. So last year, we were having a warm spring, and so I decided that I would put all of my tomato plants out early. I put them out about 2 weeks early, I think, and they went crazy. They were loving the warm weather. I did put them in walls of water so they would stay nice and toasty, and they just started going crazy, and they grew out the top. Just in those couple of weeks, they grew out the top of the wall of water, and then right at the end of April, it snowed. Okay, so we knew, of course, that we were supposed to get a snow, and so we were covering all kinds of stuff in our yard. We had bushes that were already starting to leaf out, and we didn't want the little buds to get frozen, so we were putting trash bags over those. We were covering flowers that had started to grow. And with the tomatoes, I thought, well, hey, I've got a great idea. They're growing out the top of the wall of water, so I'll just take a freezer bag. I mean, a freezer bag should protect them, right? It's supposed to protect things in a freezer. So I took the freezer bag and put them over the tops of the ones that had grown out of the walls of water, and then tucked the bag down inside the wall of water, and they got frostbite. So it didn't work. So it took a while for those tomatoes to come back. The major part of the tomato plant was protected in the wall of water, but the top got frostbite, and it sort of threw the plants into shock. And so I said, never again. I'll just wait till the 1st of May. Because then by the time they grow out the top, we're not getting those kinds of temperatures, and we're not going to get snow. We might get a flurry sometime in May, but usually not like what we got then. So, all right, it's 3 weeks early now, and I went ahead and planted some of my tomatoes. Now, I do say some. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that I plant more, or I start more plants than what I want in the garden. I do that because some of them go into shock when they get transferred from the aero garden to soil. Some of them, once they get from the soil in their pot out into the garden, will experience shock and they die, and I want to have some extra plants to replace those. I also have even busted off a stem when I was planting, so to have an extra tomato plant is just helpful, so I can have the amount of tomatoes that I want. I start my other plants a little bit later, so I don't have to worry about the cold so much with them. In fact, my squash plants are in the aero garden right now. They're only about this big. So it's, what's the date today? April 11th. So those, by the time those are big enough to put out, you know, and certainly a squash isn't going to grow out the top of the wall of water. So I decided just to take one of each of my larger tomato plants. My cherry tomatoes, I'm just going to keep inside and wait on those. But I figured that by planting one of each, I could have 3 plants potentially that come to harvest earlier than all the others, which would be really, really nice. And if we do happen to get a snow, and if my plants have grown out of the top of the walls of water and we happen to get a snow and they die, that's okay, because I have extras upstairs in a bedroom window, and I can replace those. So what I'm going to show you here is the process of planting my tomatoes, getting the soil prepared, and then I'm going to show you just kind of how I put them in walls of water. So let me go ahead and show you what I did to just get the garden bed prepared. So this is one of the garden beds that's up against my house, and it's the place where I'm going to plant my tomatoes this year. So normally what I do when I start my garden beds is I put in some composted mulch and sterilized manure, only in the places where I'm going to put transplants. You don't want to put it where you're doing seeds, apparently. So when I went over to Home Depot, they didn't have any composted mulch. They said they'd be getting some in. But I have these tomato plants that I want to start early, so I want to get them in the ground today. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put this composted mulch down, mix it up, put my 3 tomato plants in, and then as soon as I get the bags of sterilized manure, then I will take those and mix it in the areas out here where the plants are not, and then put it around the ones that I'm going to put in today. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of spreading that out, and I'll show you the next part. Okay, so that was simple enough. I still haven't gotten the manure to add into the soil. I'm going to run over and see if they have some at the store tomorrow, and then I'll mix that into the rest of the bed and around where I will have planted the tomato plants. So let me go ahead and show you a couple video clips here of how I put the walls of water around the plants. Now this is on a different day from that clip I just showed you. Hold on, I have to step down here. It was just getting too overcast that day, and I wanted there to be enough sunlight to be able to warm the cylinders of water. So I'll show you that I have I put some composted mulch on here, but I've planted one of each of my main tomatoes, my heirlooms. That is a black Krim right there. That one is an Anna Russian, and the one that you can't see under here is a San Marzano. This red thing is called a wall of water. Sometimes you'll see them in a blue-green color. And if you take a look, I put a bucket over the top, and that's going to be to keep the wall of water from falling over on the tomato while I'm filling this thing, because it's pretty awkward. You can see that there are columns here that I'll be filling with water all the way around. So when I get this all filled, then I'll pull the bucket out and form it into a teepee. So I'll show you that as soon as I get this one filled. All right, so all of the cylinders are now filled with water. You can see the tops are all kind of open because they have water in them. This was a really nice way to fill it because I didn't have to worry about holding one side while filling another. The bucket is the perfect size. And so the next thing I'm going to do is pull the bucket out, and then I'm going to position the top of it so it kind of comes together. So it sort of looks like a teepee. I'll show you in just a second. Okay, so now this is what it looks like. And the top of it is almost completely closed up. There's a little bit of an opening, and that's okay. If I open this up, you can see the little tomato plant. And by keeping the soil nice and moist, it will cause like a little, what do you call those things? Like a terrarium, you know, where moisture stays in there. It'll make a tropical little environment. It will protect the tomato plant in snow and even down to 16 degrees. My biggest fear by planting these 3 tomatoes early is that they might grow out of the top of the walls of water, and then we get a snow. I'm just hoping we don't. But that's why I'm only planting one of each, hoping to get a few of them on their merry way, growing right away, and then hopefully if we don't get a snow in the late spring, then we'll get those guys going. So I'm going to take care of these other 2 guys, and I'll come back and show you. Well, now here they all are in their little teepees, and they're all cozy in there. They should absorb a little bit of sunlight today for warmth. I gave the ground a really good soak right around the tomato plants and also around the walls of water. That will help protect them and keep them a little bit warmer tonight on their first night out. After tonight, I won't be terribly worried because they'll get a full day of sunlight. I'm doing this in the afternoon. I really should have done it this morning, but I've had things going every single morning this whole week. So they should be able to, the water should be able to soak up a little bit of heat from the sun and keep that area nice and cozy. And I'll check it out in the morning and see if I have live tomato plants, but it should be fine. I've been doing this for about 5 years. So these 3 are going to start out now, and the rest of my tomato plants will go out in about 3 more weeks. That 5-gallon bucket thing is such a great idea. I had heard of it before, but I'd never done it. I've tried to fill walls of water by myself. Way too difficult. Figured it was just a 2-person job, so my husband and I did that. Last year we did it together, so one of us was holding the wall of water up while the other one was filling it with the hose. And I did this all by myself, and so I think that 5-gallon bucket is perfect. All you do is just flip it upside down, and then the wall of water doesn't go anywhere, and so it gives it some stability while you're filming it. Now, after the first night that my tomato plants were out there, I was a little worried about this because I planted these in the afternoon when there were only, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours of direct sunlight on the garden after I planted them. I knew I should have done it in the morning because the whole idea of what makes the wall of water work is that the cylinders are filled with water, the sun heats the water heats the ground, you form a little teepee, it makes its own little nice environment in there. And so I went out and checked them the next morning and found something kind of interesting. But and then I went out again and checked them the morning after that. So let me go ahead and show you those 2 clips now. Okay, so this is the next morning, and I came out here to take a look at the 3 tomato plants. It went down to, I think, 29 degrees last night. The tubes here of water have some ice chunks in them. That might be because I put these in later in the day and it didn't get a chance to, well, the tubes got some sun on them and the water warmed up. Probably didn't get to warm the ground as much as it normally would. But the little plants inside did just fine getting through the night. They were covered. I think there was enough warmth from the sun of the day to protect them. But yeah, there are some ice things in the tubes. Normally that doesn't happen. So I'm just thinking it's because I didn't put these in earlier in the day yesterday. So that would be my recommendation if you use these. They will protect plants down to 16 degrees, but I would say do it in the morning so that it has all day long to have the sun shining on it. Okay, so this is the morning after the tomatoes spent their second night outside. It's 33 degrees right now, and unlike yesterday, these cylinders don't have any ice in them. So I was correct in thinking that if they stayed out all day and had a chance to heat up, then they wouldn't ice over. The little tomato plant is nice and happy. If I stick my hand in there, it doesn't feel warm, but it doesn't feel cold and icy either. So that definitely made a difference to put the walls of water out earlier in the day. Well, thankfully my tomato plants didn't die the first night because they really, those columns really should not have had ice in them. But it just goes to show you that when the ground is warm enough, you know, when it's radiated enough heat into the ground, then the ground then gives off some of that heat, preventing ice to form in those tubes. You don't want tubes of ice. That's not going to do a lot of good for your tomatoes. So, so now it is the 3rd day after I've planted those, and everybody's happy. The tomatoes are happily growing in there, and they do have a nice little balmy, warm environment inside of the walls of water. Hopefully they will grow nice and big. Hopefully we won't get a snow if they grow out the top. And then I will plant the remainder of my tomato plants on May 1st, which is when I typically do that. So I'll plant the rest of them then, and I should have 3 that have gotten a running start. So I'm very excited about that and just crossing my fingers. So I'd love to hear about some of the gardening things you guys are doing in your area, or some of the considerations you have to take into account when you're thinking about the, you know, just the elements and things that can impact your garden. I will take you along in future videos as I see my garden start growing and doing all kinds of great things. And I'm also going to be doing another video here coming up about planting potatoes in buckets. And that's a really great way of growing potatoes. And I'm going to show you, it's not just planting them in buckets, there's actually like a thing that you can do so you get more potatoes. And it's also a way to conserve the garden space you have. So if you have a small garden, then you don't have to take up space with your potatoes. So I hope you'll join me for that too. If you're not subscribed to my channel, I'd so love it if you would. Just hit that button right there. YouTube will let you know when I upload new videos to this channel, which right now is about once a week, but as we get into summer, probably will be more like twice a week. So I hope you will come along with me on my Flagstaff home. You can also go over to my blog at myflagstaffhome.com for information about any of the things that I talk about in these videos. So I hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for watching and take care, you guys. Bye-bye.